Hole 1 on the Devil is 305 feet. Kind of played more like 400 feet with the uphill to actually reach the pin. You want to do a force over flex shot with a high-speed driver, whatever gets you your most distance. If you challenge the right side trees, then you'll stable up and kind of come back online with the basket. If you throw too straight at the basket, when you do stable up, you can finish left and kind of go down the hill a little bit too much. And then you want to keep your upshot clean, close to the basket, because although it's not elevated, it's kind of on a hill and it gives you a feeling of being elevated. Hole 2 is 266 feet. It's still played a little bit more like a 300-foot shot. I don't know if it's just winter distance or what, but you have the option for a flick hyzer out left. Just keep it on hyzer the whole way there. I preferred a flex shot with my high-speed driver. I thought I could get there with the T-bird, but honestly, everything was playing short, so my big distance high-speed driver seemed to be the best way to get close to the basket. This is a somewhat elevated basket, so you do want to be kind of close. The winds can be a little whippy around the basket. Hole 3, 264 feet. Sometimes you can see headwinds coming up through this way if it's a windy day. During the summer, they have OB down the left side. I don't know if they're going to be playing at this time or not. But you do have the option of a flex flick, which is nice because you kind of finish out to the right of the basket, although it is going downhill to the right of the basket. But you can do a flip to straight shot or a flex shot. I found that although this is 264, it seemed to play pretty much at that distance, maybe 280-ish of a shot to get to the pin. Hole 4, 330 feet. This played a little bit like 380, at least again for my winter power. I flexed my high-speed driver with that power and I was able to get to pin high. You kind of have a flex flick line, you have a hyzer flip, backhand shot. Again, sometimes on windy days you're going to see a headwind here. You have room left and right to kind of dump out near the basket. Although if you get directly right or left of the basket, you can be choked off by the trees that are really close as far as a putt goes, and it does fall off downhill behind the basket a little bit if you're doing an upshot. You just want to watch that. Hole 5, 317 feet. Whatever you did on the previous hole is just do the same thing here. If you're going to flex something to the right, just push it to the right side a little extra, so when you come back you'll be online with the basket. There are some low branches on this tree here in the center that you could catch if you fly too high. You also have, of course, a flex flick line through this center. It's quite a pump to get there. You kind of want to give it, again, a good 350 or more worth of power to get pin high. Hole 6 is 330 feet. I'm going to say this probably plays more like 430 to actually get to the pin. So a smarter play is just do maybe a 75% power, keep it in the center of the fairway, and do a nice easy upshot to secure an easy 3. There are OB lines on the left during the summer, and if it is windy, it's usually pushing left to right here. You just don't want to turn over to the right into those trees and give yourself a weird upshot. And you don't want to hyzer out left over towards the next tee pad, because there are OB lines over there. Generally, it's a kind of a easy 3 if you just play it for the 3, and it's very difficult too. You just have to either have a throw in or a really big arm. Hole 7, 262. I mean, it just plays basically like 250. You can flex a buzz or a pathfinder out the right side, or you can flick something flat or on hyzer out the left here. There's that low branch on that tree that you're going to watch out for. And it is kind of downhill to the right of the basket a little bit, so you could skip and slide some down that way. But generally speaking, just throw a 250-foot shot and you'll have a decent look at a putt on the hole. Hole 8, 250 feet. A couple of options. If you want to just stay in the center of the gap, there's a force flex flick line, which is really good. Just take a stable high-speed driver and put it high on a big angle and just flex it up to the pin. It does play kind of long. Plays more like maybe a 280, 275 kind of shot. There is a hyzer line out to the right if you want a chance getting through those trees. The flip up through the center is kind of tough because it's a little narrow for the flip up line. I personally like just throwing a big hyzer with my high-speed driver out to the right and take a chance getting through the trees. Hole 9, 240 feet, downhill. There's some OB left during the summer. I don't know if they're playing it during the winter here, but if you have a very straight, like a watt or something like that just pushes really straight and finishes kind of straight, you could do that. But I personally like the flex flick with a Buzz OS or a Zone or something, because that way the downhill, if you're a backhand shot, is going to be finishing with a downhill down and away from the basket, whereas the flick would be kind of cutting back toward the basket. Hole 10, 300 feet. I always underestimate the power it takes to get to this basket. It says 300 feet, but it's actually kind of uphill. I think when you throw it for 330 to 350 of power, you're pretty much going to get pin high or maybe go 10 long or something. But it's just a gap at high power. Flex something out to the right and have it come back left, or whatever dealer's choice here. But sometimes on windy days you can get a little bit of a headwind, and that can make if you're doing a hyzer flip, that can make that shot a little squirrelier. But I see a lot of people coming up short on this and ending up with 40 or 50 foot putts, so don't be afraid to give it a little extra power. Hole 11, 300 feet. This is another one that you're going to want to play at 330 to 350 worth of power. Again, there could be some headwind here. So if you're flipping something up, you can flip it over too much. But generally speaking, you could flick something. There's a gap you see over on the left there a little bit that you'll fade back to the basket. And there's plenty of gaps out right if you flex something on a backhand. You can actually get into those trees over there on the right and come through no problem. So you don't actually have to throw it straight down the gap the whole way, but you do have to put some power on it. There's an OB line left and behind the basket, but most people don't go long. Again, like I said, you want to throw it about 340-ish worth of power. Hole 12, 331. To play the center of the gap the best, you want to do just your overstable, high speed driver on a flex flick. You see the gap opening up as I'm walking up the fairway here. If you're going to hyzer flip something out the right hand side, you're just gambling to get through the trees, and there's a lot of trees on the right. If you can actually throw 330 feet of power, you could get down to the basket, but generally speaking, you're going to want to go for the 3. There is a downhill right after the basket, so you don't want to overcook your upshot too much, but you want to get it accurate because you don't want to be putting at the basket facing the downhill either. Hole 13, 320 feet. Honestly, the safest play is just to hyzer something out to the right of the little skinny tree in the center there. Generally, it's sort of a pushing tailwind right to leftish, kinda. So it's going to help your disc get to the basket anyways. It's kind of just too risky to try to push something straight up through the center because you hit one of those early trees. There is OB there during the summertime, but also it was just going to leave you a really long upshot. So if you can't make it 340 feet, then just throw a hyzer around 75% power and have an easy upshot. Basket's on a little bit of an elevated mound, which can be an issue if it's a windy day. So definitely try to get your upshots close. Hole 14, I don't think the 440 is correct because I've pushed the basket up deeper and further left. This is going to bait you into throwing harder than you really need to. Just throw it the same power that you've been doing on any of the other 330 foot holes. You just want to kind of push up here to where these trees are in the center of the fairway. You don't want to be pinched off too far left because you're going to have to throw kind of a high hyzer to access the green. So honestly, the further right you are, the easier it is. You could flick something in, or you can backhand something in on a hyzer. So I think most people are going to have the power to get there in 2 shots. Just if you're a lower speed arm, you're going to have to be a little more accurate on your second shot. But a higher speed arm, you might be able to actually see the basket a little bit on your next shot. It is the basket is on a slope, so you could have slideaways and rollaways. So you kind of want to be pretty close, and there's some guarded trees in there too, as you'll see, that are blocking your upshots a little bit. Hole 15, 237 is just a touchy little shot. It's almost played with just 150 foot of power, really. You could flick a zone or berg down the left. You actually kind of want to push a little bit beyond to the left of the giant pine tree there. Just kind of cut around the back side of it. We'll put you on a line right to the basket, or you can just flex a putter down to the pin. The ground is sloping away the whole way. That rock is about 10 feet in front of the basket. Basically just want to throw something straight that gets down kind of quick. Hole 16, 238, it's very deceiving. For a right-hand backhand thrower, this is a very hard hole. If you're going to flip something up and try to turn it over to the basket, it's going to take something a lot flippier than you think, because throwing that much uphill is going to have your disc stable up and hyzer out over by that rock or bush, which is flirting with an OB line. You can chance going up through the center, or of course big arm flickers can just flick on a hyzer up to it, but man, it takes a lot of power on the flick. Probably in the range of 325-ish of power to flick all the way to the basket. Hole 17, 400 feet, probably plays more like 450 or more. You really don't have to do something too crazy here. Really, if you just throw something straight up to the left at the access point of the road that cuts back to the right. You'll have a nice easy flick shot to the basket, like a little flex flick or something. If you want to get aggressive and you're going to turn over a high-speed driver into the trees, you're just kind of rolling the dice if you're going to push through them or not, and you might leave yourself with a very difficult upshot, honestly, if you're pinched off on a tree or something. So best play is just throw something up to the left and do a flick approach to try to get a 3. Hole 18, the final hole on the devil's side. You have a mando tree on the right, and you can have some squirrely winds here that can make you easily miss that mando to have to go to a drop zone. The sign says 294. It doesn't take quite that much power to get there, but I had good luck with just putting a pathfinder kind of on a hyzer where you challenge the mando line but have a hyzer right in front of it, and you'll check skip right to the basket. All right, now on to the demon side. This is hole 1, 135 feet. You can just toss a putter up the right-hand side on a hyzer, or flick something somewhat stable up this center gap. It'd be nicer to putt from the high side. If you do a hyzer from the high side down, you'll be finishing downhill. So, anyways, it's a pretty easy hole. It's 135 feet. Just want to try to get it close. Hole 2, 255 feet. Don't be fooled into going up this far right-hand side gap, because there's some late trees you won't be able to get by. You can either flick something really hard, 300-foot power up through here, or backhand turnover. If you're doing the backhand turnover, you want to throw extra high because it's losing elevation as it's turning over. Especially with the backhand turnover, you can also clip an early tree, and then you're fading out left and going a long ways away from the basket. So it's a little bit of a difficult uphill shot. The 2 is kind of hard on it. Hole 3, 287. This is a pretty difficult hole to get a 2 on. Whether you're flicking or you're turning over something, there's a lot of trees to get through, and it's kind of a long distance. So the ground comes up at the halfway point. So if you're turning a backhand turnover, you're going to be cresting that hill not too high over it. And if you're flicking, there's some low branches to clip here and there. It's honestly kind of common just to land a little bit past the hump in a low spot and just have either a long 50 or 60 foot putt at the basket. If you go really long left, there's a big pine tree in the way of the putt. Hole 4, 347 feet. You could just break it down into 2 halfway shots. Just throw something straight up the middle, land a little short of these center cluster of trees, and then throw a big hyzer around. But it's easier if you can bite off some more distance somehow. Whether you're crashing in through the trees on the left, there are some gaps there to hit, or if you flex a high-speed driver up through the gap and kind of to the right of the center cluster. But you are hitting a gap with power, so this is a bit of a tough hole. There's virtually going to be no 2s on it unless they're throw-ins. So you just really want to try to do what you can to make the 3 as easy as possible. Hole 5, 153. You need to throw it about 200 feet. Flex like a buzz up to it, or just straight shot. Having it push in left at the last minute. You actually don't want to push too straight up the trail, because if you're pin high on the trail, there's trees in the way of the basket. So you want it to come in a little bit toward the basket. Hole 6, 163. Whatever you did for the last hole, you're just going to do the same thing here. If you're flexing something like a Buzz or Pathfinder type disc up through here, you want to start out a little bit left because it's kind of common to hit this one little skinny tree on the right hand side that you see there, which drops you short like 50 feet or more. So just flex a Buzz up here nice and flat with 200 feet of power, and you should have a pretty good look for a birdie. Hole 7, 184 is just this weird, touchy, very downhill shot. Whether you can go straight to the right, just kind of glitch or whatever putter, or you can flick something down this left side, which was the original fairway. Seems to have the most space for a disc to go. Maybe you can flick something over stable, hit the ground here, and just kind of skip and roll and dance your way down to a putt. Hole 8, 192. This is another weird hole. It's like they ran out of property and had to shove 2 holes in. It's kind of a touchy flex overstable zone shot. You don't want to cut in too early left because there's a crap load of trees. You don't want to go too far right and floaty because it's so far downhill. You could just you'll be yelling for the people on hole 9's tee pad. You just want something that flexes here and then just gets to the ground really fast right next to the basket. Hole 9, 256, takes roughly more like 300 to 320 worth of power to get all the way up to the basket. It's a high backhand hyzer that you gotta just get lucky. You push it between these 2 trees here, push the back wall of trees a little bit, and have it finish left toward the basket and hopefully get a putt. You're just really honestly hoping to get through the trees. Hole 10, 195 feet is more like a 250 to 270 foot hyzer. Just throw a T-bird or high-speed stable fairway driver on a high hyzer angle to the right of this pine tree and have it crash over to the left. Hole 11, 334. If you're strictly a backhand player and don't really have a flick, you just want to throw something like a Pathfinder or a T-bird flat and straight and get as far left after this straightaway as possible to have a nice upshot. If you're a good flicker and you can hit a good gap, a flex high-speed driver that pushes the right side, comes in early on the left side here, and stables up and cuts down around the corner of the basket. I've witnessed a 2, but they're not very common. Hole 12, 176. Don't be tempted into throwing it too straight through the gap to the basket because the land falls away left of the basket and you can get a little extra distance away from the pin. It's okay to flex something to the right of this tree that's in the center because there's a lot of airspace for a disc to get through. I suppose you could flick something through, but it's really just any kind of a putter straight shot to the basket that lands kind of straight. Hole 13, 275 feet. I've seen flicks get down there. I've seen backhand turnovers. My play that works pretty well is a gentle force over with something like a beat-in buzz or a buzz SS, maybe even a mana or a putter. Just push straight first, have it turning right, and gently stable up. Honestly, the goal is to land at the base of the rock just in front of the basket, and you'll have a pretty nice putt at the basket for a 2. If you have to do an upshot, that's a good target place to land, again right before the rock, so you'll know you have a good shot at it. But the basket is very elevated and up on the rock. This is a place where big numbers can be taken. Hole 14, 258. This is a new basket location. If you haven't been out here recently, you can't see it from the pin, from the tee pad, but you're going to want to throw something high speed because it's going to play more like a 300 probably. Just cresting this hill to the right of the big white birch tree and pushing far back. You'll see the basket is hanging on a cord kind of over an elevated hump with a drop off behind it. There's a lot of trees around the basket, which complicates the putt, but it's going to take quite an accurate drive and a high power drive to get up to within a 2 range.
Hole 15 is a downhill shot that you want to kind of crest the hill low. Ideally, if you throw too high, you can stall out too early. As you know, downhill shots are touchy, but so you want to push something straight and have it stall out and go left. You might be able to see the giant pine tree from the tee pad as a point of reference to where it needs to finish. You kind of don't want to finish too far left because you're going to have a death putt with a huge drop off behind the basket. If you can get pin high and finish just right of the basket, you could take a nice putt toward the basket with the pine tree as a backstop. Hole 16, 200 feet is either a touchy, gentle backhand turnover, or honestly the best play is just a flick with something like a berg or a zone or something like that. You just don't want to come in too high because that apple tree has a couple low branches that can drop your putt. Hole 17, if you want to try to get to the pin, the easiest way to do it is going to be a backhand flex shot with something like a buzz or even a buzz SS maybe, because to park the basket, you want to crest this hill while you're turning over slightly, and you actually want to push the pine trees on the right side and kind of get lucky those last 2 and filter through them to actually come online with the basket. Otherwise you're going to fade out left and skip a little bit on the downhill. And the final hole, there's any number of ways to attack this, just whatever you choose. For a disc and a shot, make sure you get your height right. That's the critical thing. If you throw it too low or too high, stall out or turn over.